I did some work off camera to finish the rest of the animation transformations, which is really just in the scene manager where we have two animations right now. So we have after a mesh is created, I set two constants for the animation frame per second and the total animation frame so that we can tune the speed. So this one just adjusts the position by having animating to its final resting position, which is this clone, but start 10 meters higher, so it gives us the impression that it's falling in from the sky. And we can also give a, what is it? Frames per second, total frame from to loop mode, and an easing function. Let's try out an easing function. What are our options? Babylon dot animation easing function. Easing. Let's Google Babylon easing function constant. Ease. Easing. Quadratic ease. Power ease. How do you use these? Easing behavior. Easing function. Okay. Dot. Okay, these are a choice. Ease in. Ease out. I guess we use ease out then. Bezier curve. Quadratic ease. Easing function equals new bevel on JS. Circle ease. Set easing mode. Easing function. Circle ease, back ease, bounce ease, cubic ease, power ease. You can create a new easing function of this type. Then you can further set the easing mode. Oh, so maybe this is incorrect. This isn't how you do this. So this is This is a number, but what's expected here is a type of function. So this probably isn't right. All right, we'll come to this later. But anyway, so that's the animation for when you create a mesh. And then we also have an animation for when we either change the position, scaling, or rotation. We will just animate over that difference. So then we don't need these two. And this is animate component is used when you call the entity transformed event. So now we have this one and this one animated. I wonder if we can do something with entity colored. Let's try that. So we're setting the color. I don't know if we can because that requires a texture, so I don't know. Even if you could animate over a even if you can animate over the vector 3 that is a color. Yeah, never mind animating that. How about entity deleted? We could shrink it and then have it disappear, kind of like that. So let's look at the entity deleted. So this is just making it dispose. So we could do this instead. Let's grab our animation bit and go back to dispose. So we'll put this here and we'll say delete mesh. Let's mess with the scaling and let's say that the go from your current scaling which is mesh position scaling mesh scaling clone. Go from that to new Babylon vector 3 made up of 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. So shrinks it down a bit, maybe even smaller. Okay, so we've got the name, the target, which is mesh, target property, which is scaling. Then we've got frame per second, total frame, from, to, loop mode, easing function. I guess we'll just give it null, and then on animation end, we'll have a callback. What's going on here? Parser expected to find this to match the, okay, so we have an extra something or other around here. What is going on? something going on here. Oh, here. There you go. Okay, so here's your callback function. So we'll dispose of you within there. Okay, so let's check it out. Start our server. Looks pretty good. Okay, I like that. So I think I've animated the ones that I wanted. Oh yeah, maybe we can do something with member moved. That way when a member's moving around, you can have them slide over. I guess we can do that. So we can make a new to-do, add animation to member moved. That's a to-do. Now I wanted to take a gander at playback. Easiest way to do this, since we don't have a UI for this, is to do this with our GraphQL API. Now, our schema is probably out of date. Graphical. So what do we have? We have ways of querying our space. Let's just check and see if these still work. So I want to query the space slug is A. Give me back a space with what, an ID. So that still works. What else is available here? Name. Okay, description. And settings. Okay, which is an object of type JSON. Okay, cool. The slug, of course, which is A. And entities. Entities with an ID. Otherwise, entities can have let's see, name of their own. Good. What else? And it has a parent ID, or it can be null. And the space ID that it belongs to. Okay, interesting. Okay, that's fine. What else? Components. What's in a component is more data. Oh, here's components, data. The type, entity ID. Okay, I want to fix this a bit. Let's take a look here. Where is our schema stuff? So we have lib. Got, I believe it's under web. Schema. So, do I have a type for component? Object component type and JSON, which means it's always an object. But sometimes data is just a string. Is there an any type? Import types, DXR schema types, custom types. JSON schema allows arbitrary JSON values to be passed in and out. Well, I guess we can try to fix this later. Let's just mark this as, let's see, GraphQL component has nested data. Research on how to fix that. Meanwhile, at least the query kind of works. You're getting stuff back. What else can you do? So you have the query, which really just had the one endpoint space and spaces. Spaces. Whoops. I guess this is broken. This should give you back a list of spaces. Where does it go now? Okay, so we've got schema, object space, get all spaces, goes to a space resolver, spaces 3. And this goes spaces, list spaces. What happens here? Spaces, spaces. Okay, and you get entities, which is not loaded. It should be able to list IDs at least. Oh, any, okay, it's still, schema's messed up, that's what you're complaining about. Okay, so that still works. And then you've got mutations. You can create an entity, delete entity, update space. So these are kind of like commands. Create entity with a slug and a type. And what does that do? So create entity takes these arguments, slug and a type, and then it goes to a space resolver for create entity. That goes into this file here. Create entity uses the context function get space by the slug, and if you find it, then you go add entity with a broadcast. And that's not what we want to do anymore. Now we want to emit an event. And the place that was receiving them is the space server, which is handling, which is you're saying process event. So it gets the slug, a payload, and a PID. So looking at space resolver, we're going to want to make sure the space is alive. So add entity with a broadcast is going to do some other thing now. Here we were actually creating the entity. I don't think we want to do that. We want to do process event on the space server. For process event, the slug is the arg slug. It also needs to be started, so we need to make sure that we have space. To have a supervisor. Start space. By the slug as well. Get space by the slug. Space, so we're going to start this, and so the start child, and then we maybe it's not our responsibility to start it. We'll just assume that it's there. So space server, process event. What's this? Okay, so nil. Maybe process event without a PID. leave it nil is fine. Payload, and you need to construct a payload. Payload equals something like this. What was the other args in create entity? Type. And the ID. I just use it though. Ecto regenerate. Okay. And the name. Components. So if you don't have components, you should create some, right? The timestamp should be how many seconds since epoch? Elixir get epoch. OS timestamp. Need components for position, rotation, and scaling. Otherwise, it just creates the envelope. And actually, that will just be default. Yeah, you don't actually have to send it. I think it's fine. But if you translate it, and translate assumes that you have it. That should be something that's fixed, because in our snapshot, yes, snapshot, how do we handle entity transformed, is we keep looking for from component where this thing equals the type, and you're going to update that. But if you don't have it, you won't be able to update it. I think it's reasonable just to make them. Okay, let's just make them. So then we need 3. And then every one of this has a type, position, and then data, which is just rotation, scaling. So that's the payload. And we give that to process events, and then we don't need that. Is that correct? We need to start the space. So if we go here, that space is started. So nothing in here but a cube and plane. Now we'll go to graphical, and we'll try a mutation. Create entity with slug as A, and the type shall be box. And we need to get back an entity which can have an ID. Okay, parse error here, I think. Invalid return value from the resolver. Oh, this doesn't give you anything. You want an OK something. You know what? I'd rather not give back anything. Is there a way to not give back anything? This one just gives back an ID. Yeah, why don't we do that? Create entity so I don't have to give back anything. Oh, but it did create the thing. I'll just give back OK and the ID. And the ID will be space is unused. Yeah, we're not using the space, are we? Alright, let's try this again. Maybe we can use the delete entity. Does that still work? What is our entity? What was our entity? To be able to get entities. Query space slug a, give me back a list of entities. ID and the name, please. Here's the box. This is the only box. So we're going to grab this ID. Now we want to delete the box. So we say mutation, delete entity name of the entity. Oh, you can get the name of the entity now? I want to give you the ID. It's more unique. Get space by slug, delete. Okay. Alright, we'll rework this later.